Watching this little short video on YouTube why Wall Street is buying up so many U.S. homes. Now, I already know this, but I want y'all to see this. Just listen.
They own about 80,000 homes. American Homes for Rent, which was started by Wayne Hughes, they own about 60,000 homes. There's a company called Tricon Residential that's out of Canada. And then there's one called Amherst. Those are the big five.
In recent years, corporate landlords have been most active in the Sun Belt. In 2021,
corporate landlords have been most active in the Sun Belt. Why is that important?
Corporations bought 28% of all the homes sold in Texas. That figure was 19% in Georgia and 16% in Florida. Companies like Pradium and Blackstone target these markets. Blackstone in particular has held large stakes in several companies that dominate the region. Rent hikes.
Now, Blackstone, let me explain it. The guy that now is the CEO, Larry Fink, who claims to be Jewish, a BlackRock, he used to work for Blackstone. They like two peas in the pod. They boys. You just heard what they said. Most of the companies, you see Home Partners of America, Tricon Residential, you see it says Blackstone backed, and then Home Partners of America says Blackstone owned. Where are they buying up most of these properties at? In the Sun Belt, in the South. In the South. So why is that important? Why is that important? Well, most black people, where do they live? You can go look it up. Most black people live in the South. Most black people live in the South. These corporations are coming in and they are jacking up the prices of homes, not because they don't want necessarily white people to get them, but they want to make sure that we can't afford them. And as a result of that, white people are suffering. They did the same thing with I think healthcare and stuff like that. The reason that the healthcare premiums are so high for pretty much everybody is because they didn't want black people to have access to healthcare.
Published a book called Race, Tendencies, and Traits of the American Negro, in which he lays out all the numbers, and then he concludes that if we simply avoided allowing black people to have any access to health care, that within 2 or 3 generations, the whole race would die out, and that would solve the race problem in America. When Teddy Roosevelt, 1912, proposed a national health care system, people said no because black people will get it. When Franklin Roosevelt proposed a national health care system, it was the same thing. We don't want black people to get it. When Truman tried it in 1947, same thing. Don't want black people to get it. We have to figure out a way to keep black people from using Medicare. And the way that they came up with was to have a 20% a gap in Medicare, so that you had to pay 20% of your doctor's bill and your hospital bill, and that would discourage poor black people from showing up at the hospitals. Nearly 100% of the reason why the United States is the only country in the world that doesn't define healthcare as a right is because of racism.
The same thing is happening with the housing market, because the average black person can't afford no $468,000 house, can't afford no $400,000 house, can't afford no $350,000 house. I'm saying the average black person. I ain't saying a black person can't afford that. I'm saying the average black person can't afford that. And so they come in and say, hey, we're going to buy these properties up because there's more money in us renting them than allowing them to eventually get these properties. So we're going to go ahead and put these properties pretty much out of reach, out of range. And it ends up affecting the average day, everyday white American that wants to afford a home. This is what happens when people do wicked. They be so hell-bent on one group of people that everybody ends up suffering. Now, if you know about real estate, you know that they promote rent. Buy and rent. Or what they say, buy and hold. There's nothing wrong with that. But the system of buy and hold is set up for them because they incentivize rental properties, and they penalize you if you sell it. If you get a property and you rent it out, they'll give you more tax breaks, more tax benefits. But if you sell it, then hey, we coming for you. We want all that tax money. Why? Because the way it's set up. They want more rental properties in the hands of these people. Therefore, you have not only white Americans renting, but you also, who they're targeting first and foremost, black Americans. Black Americans renting. They want us to keep on renting. And guess what? All this was prophesied in the Bible. Going back to Deuteronomy 28. It said that we will build homes, but we will not dwell in them. We will be the tail and not the head. We will be the borrower and not the lender. And that's part of the curses. A financial curse. And you know that a lot of money goes through real estate. In fact, most people get wealthy through real estate. Anybody that's doing anything with money, they're going to put their money in real estate because of the benefits of it.
Rent hikes for single-family homes in this region have outpaced other parts of the country. Since the onset of the pandemic, rents for a 2-bed detached home increased about 43% in Phoenix. They're up 44% in Tampa and 35% in Atlanta. That's compared to 24% nationwide.
That's compared to 24% nationwide. So in these areas they're talking about where it's hot at, hot markets, hot real estate markets, the rent is going up. But these areas are dominated by black people where the rent is higher. Now, don't we know that black people don't make as much money as white people? I'm just saying, man. I'm just saying.
The average overall pay gap between black and white workers increased from 21.8% in 2000 to 26.5% in 2019. And black women, on average, earned just 91 cents on the dollar compared to black men working the same amount of hours. In her 2022 paper confronting the racial pay gap, author Stephanie Bornstein notes how the racial pay gap has actually grown in the last 4 decades, with black women experiencing a double pay gap as a result of both racial and gender bias. In 2019, black women earned just 63 cents to the dollar of white men. And for Latina women, the gap was even greater, earning just 55 cents to the dollar of white men. The pay gaps for women of color are the slowest to show gains, while economic shocks like the job losses sustained during were disproportionately borne by those same groups of women. And these pay gaps have remained and worsened, even as gaps like those in education, for example, have closed dramatically over the same time period. When comparing black and white workers with the same level of education in 2019, for example, economist Elise Gould found a 22.5% pay gap among college graduates and a 17.6% pay gap among advanced degree holders, indicating the degree to which discrimination and biases continue to remain entrenched in the workforce, which disproportionately hurt women of color.
So you do realize that there's no accident when it comes to the wealth gap between white families and black families. Currently, black families literally have less than 1% of America's wealth. That's the same number that it used to be in slavery. So you ask yourself why? Well, let me tell you why. The white family wealth is $147,000 in comparison to the black family, which only has a wealth of $3,600.
It's illegal to pay people less because of their skin tone. Do you have proof? Yeah, we have statistics that show this. Black individuals just make less than their white counterparts. A lot of people will say, oh, well, you know, black individuals only make 70 cents to every dollar a white person makes. But that is because there is a difference in jobs. People are like, oh, wait, no, that's just because black individuals take lower paying jobs. Well, that's also due a little bit to racism. But let's actually compare jobs that are the exact same. Looking at jobs that are the exact same, but one individual is black and the other individual is white, we see a black individual earn about 98 cents to every dollar a white individual earns for the exact same job. We're not talking about the 70 cents to a dollar that they make less on average, but we're talking about the exact same job, the exact same title, and the exact same credentials, still being paid 2 pennies less for every dollar. People are gonna be like, well, how does 2 cents make a difference? Oh, that's a huge difference. If you take a career that's $70,000, that's a $2,000 to $3,000 difference a year. $2,000 to $3,000 invested to a year is actually enough to retire on by the time you're 70.
as compared to 24% nationwide. Experts say that many of the properties bought up by institutional groups were previously owned by people who were destabilized in recent recessions.
After the pandemic, people saw the opportunity to go into these lower income neighborhoods, working class neighborhoods.
To go into the what? To the lower income neighborhoods. We're going to pay you a little money. You're going to get it out of there. We're going to come in. We're going to renovate it. We're going to take over the old area. And now the value has went up and the rents are crazy.
Neighborhoods buy up these houses and in communities that the working class can afford. And they're holding these houses, often for years, taking them off the market, making it even harder for young people and working class families to own a house.
Companies like Blackstone make serious money from these investments. For example, the company's Real Estate Income Trust delivered an 8.4% return on investment in 2022. This in a year when the wider stock market declined nearly 20%.
Now you understand why they're always investing in real estate. This is why they don't want us to be into real estate. They don't want us to understand the game. Now that we're understanding the game, understanding how things are working and how it goes, they got to go ahead and get their money. Got to go ahead and jack the prices up and stuff like that. All they're doing is making it harder and harder for people to be able to get into it.
This is just a test. The big one comes later. This is just a test. The big one comes later. This is just a test. The big one comes later.
You wish to test me? Good.